So, welcome to the first part of the webinar devoted to talk about critical analysis. That theme that intrigues many graduate students, and that skill that you need to use in order to be in order to create a good thesis and other academic papers. So let's begin with this quote. This quote emphasizes the importance of the procedures we follow to think about the situation we face. It's not just a matter of content, it's a matter of how you do things, how you think about. And that's very important, that point of how the procedures that you have to follow in order to think critically and in order to do critical analysis. Welcome, Safni. So today we will discuss the basics of critical analysis and how you can prepare yourself to do it. You know that it certainly is a field for misunderstandings, confrontation, and frustrations. It's a thing that worries both professors and graduate students. And usually the exchange goes like this. More analysis needed, be more critical. And then you say, oh my God, what is this professor talking about? So therefore, we need to know critical analysis better in order to avoid this common but undecidable situation. And that is why we are here today for. So let's begin by looking at what usually intrigues students about critical analysis. These questions, by the way, will be answered in this webinar. These are the things that students, Mark, take care, that the students usually ask themselves, okay? At the end of this, you are going to clarify that, that thought. Okay, so let's begin by defining critical analysis so we can understand what is expected from us when asked to perform it. So if you see the slide, you will realize that interpretation equals explanation of meaning. So when you interpret, you have to be able to explain things. Okay, and when that definition, the previous one, is applied to a thesis, it implies to focus on establishing the main ideas of a study, an evaluation of their validity and consistency, and the link between that study and your own one. Those three tasks must be performed if you want to do critical analysis in a thesis. And that's why usually graduate students are daunted about that task. So to do that, you need to move in two different levels, establishing and interpreting. First, you identify the main ideas or elements of the work, and then explain their meaning in relation to the work itself and the one that you are doing. And here we have a pivotal idea to remember. Describing a work is not performing critical analysis. and then you ask that. A description is in fact the first step to do critical analysis, and that includes the interpretation of that description. So let's see some specific differences between a description and a critical analysis in order to understand the difference better. Please pay attention to the verbs that state the actions required for each one of them. Check, for instance, the second row of differences, and think about how different states what something is like is from evaluate strengths and weaknesses. That is the core of what we are talking about. Critical analysis requires to go beyond what is explicit and look for relationships that are not necessarily explicitly presented, and you even have to make a judgment about their validity and consistency. And this slide summarizes the action associated to critical analysis. The common element, if you see all those verbs, you can realize that the common element is reflection. Something that we talk about in the webinar about critical thinking. Reflection is more than describe. So these are the things that you are expected to do when performing critical analysis. That is the information you need to provide in order to satisfy the expectation of doing critical analysis. That is what your teacher is asking for. All those things, all those elements must be in your critical analysis. And why is critical analysis so important? Believe it or not, it's not to bother you, okay? It is because your main task when writing academic papers, especially thesis, is to convince people, and that can only be achieved through consistent arguments supported by evidence. That's why critical analysis is so important. But now we face the big question. There are two elements required to do critical analysis, and that's the first thing that you have to think about. Input and courses of action. And the second one is what students struggle with. You can recognize input, you can identify what you need, what information you need, but that the problem is usually how to approach the task. What procedure should I follow in order to, in order to complete the task? So usually students approach the task of doing critical analysis without a plan that lets them examine the input in an organized and effective way, and which makes them achieve the goals of establishing and interpreting. So the problem should be to know how to proceed, how to do, what are the steps to follow in order to do critical analysis. You love input, Adrian. And to ease learning, we will focus today on daily life input. So situations that are not related to physics, but which should be approached in the same organized and effective way. So if you learn how to do it, with a daily life situation, you will find easier to do it with your thesis. We are going to present two main courses of action that you can apply to both daily life situation and thesis. There are many others, but these two are very easy to follow and could help you to learn the idea that you need a plan in order to do critical analysis. Let's begin with points to pay attention to. When you face a situation that requires to get to a conclusion, there are some points you need to clarify. So you analyze the situation, trying to fill up those gaps of information. Once you have the information, it's time to interpret it. You focus on explaining the meaning of the situation and even their effects upon the involved actors in a supported way. It means providing evidence that lets you convince people of the validity and consistency of your conclusion. So you look at the input and try to fill those fields of gaps of information that we have in the slide. That's a way of acting. As I said, interestingly, I'm working on a text and textuality assignment that involves using critical analysis to make sense of utterances. And you see, probably you have realized how important it is to do a good critical analysis, right? Okay, you can also achieve that established goals, in identifying and interpreting, asking questions instead of looking for the gaps of information. Well, instead, when you ask questions, you are looking for gaps of information. If you check these questions, you can see they refer to the same gaps of information of the previous slide. The difference is that in this course of action, you use a more direct and a specific approach, and you ask questions. So some people would think that this could be easier to do than the previous course of action. But both courses of action presented try to achieve the same goals, establishing and interpreting, and focus on the same gaps of information. They differ on how specific is each one. And as the slide says, you can choose the one that better fits your cognitive and learning style. So it's a matter of choice. It's a matter of feeling comfortable with one of those courses of action. I repeat, there are many other ways of doing this, but I think that these two courses of action will help you do start doing learning the process. So these are the points that we have discussed today, and which I hope are clearly now for you. Okay, and of course, I would like to know your opinion about how this could be helpful for you or not. And the next step, well, like critical thinking, you need to reflect upon what has been said. And of course, practice a lot. And to begin your practice, I have chosen a template to guide you through the process of performing critical analysis. It is in the next slide, and please use it. The more you use it, the more you get used to approach critical analysis in an organized and effective way, with a plan, a previous plan. Next Thursday, I would like to know your opinion about the exercise, and then we will focus on how to do critical analysis in your thesis. Of course, based on the principle presented today. And this is the template. As you see, you write down an introduction, a summary, an analysis, and a conclusion. And for doing the introduction, you provide the information on the right column. For doing the summary, you do the same with the second column. And even I have included, well, I adapted it from Rankin and Wolf's work. But there are some examples of what kind of a statement you can use in order to write down that summary or the introduction or the analysis. So you can use some words that help you do that, okay? And it's the same with the analysis and the conclusion. Oh yes, the references are here, my dear. Here you have all the references for today's webinar. And there is where you can find that template. I made some changes in it in order to make it easier to work with this level and so on. Okay? Please, if you have any comment, any question, please feel free to share it. By the way, do you think that we go too quickly along the content? Just let me know, and we can go back and discuss things. Okay, you got it, Adrian. What about B? What about Safnil? Or my dear Mark? Tell me. Sometimes some people say that the reason of the webinar is too slow, and sometimes is the opposite. I think that depends on each group, and here we have very perhaps basic ideas, but don't get confused by that, okay? They are basic ideas, but they are important ones, okay? If we convince reader by using image, do we have to be critical? Well, perhaps the use of the image, the selection of the image is where you are critical, in fact. But you cannot just provide an image and do not discuss it. At least the basics of it. It's not that you are going to write down a complete description. It's not a matter of description. It's a matter of interpreting of what that image has to do with the content that you have discussed. How that image reflects the ideas that you want to express. How that image can support your points of view. So an image by itself is okay for some things, but for in a thesis, for instance, that image needs to be clarified in terms of how it relates to the rest of the work and to other works. Think a picture is still worth 1,000 words in understanding. Yeah, it could be, but in a thesis, it's a different thing. I mean, you can put it there, but you need to make sure that the impact and the significance of that image should be stated clearly. Okay. Any other? To be critical means to find other people's weaknesses or faults. That's part of it. It's not just to look for weaknesses. Let me go back to the slide in which we talk about what you are expected to do to be to do a critical analysis. Let me see. Okay, here you have. That's what critical analysis implies. Main ideas of finding the work, because that's the input, that's the matter when you are working with. Reasons why it is important, the significance of that of the ideas. What it fails to address is just one part, the weakness. But it could, and that's what it says, if applicable, and that is to balance, that can balance the significance that you have pointed out before. How it links to your own situation. And that's something that graduate students usually forget to do when they are writing down their thesis. They approach the task in completely focusing on the work that they are talking about, but they do not link those ideas to what they are doing. Are you going to use the same methodology? Yes. Why yes or why not? Are you going to? Are you convinced that the theoretical principles can be applied to your own problem to get answers to your own research questions? If so, you have to say it. If not, you have to say it too. And you have to, the last point is similar and different points of view on main ideas and conclusions. And that's what complete the critical analysis. I agree with these points of view because of this and this, or I challenge these points of view because of this and this. Yeah, you can read much faster than you can talk. Well, some people, because there are some, especially women, that are faster. However, to get someone else to see your idea or thought, words paint a picture. Yeah. And it's not just a matter of painting the picture, or which means describing the situation, is how to interpret that situation. Okay? Interpretation is a very important aspect of critical analysis. Please look at this in this slide. Look at the verbs that are, or the tasks that are below critical analysis. Identifying significance. Identifying significance implies that you have to reflect about how important those ideas are for your field of study, but also for your own work. Okay? Evaluate strengths and weaknesses, and then you can see, well, this is important, this because of this, or this is failing in this aspect. Evaluate relative significance of details. You have a lot of details in the input, but you need to know how important each one of them is for your field of study, but also for your problem and your research study. You have to make reasoned judgment. And to make a reasoned judgment, it means that you have to reflect upon the ideas, connect them among them, look for relationship, look for the significance in relation to other ideas or to other works. Argue the case according to the evidence. You have to take into account the evidence, like a good lawyer, a good judge. Take into account the evidence and see how that evidence supports or challenge those ideas or those points of view. Okay? So, if you look at that list of things, you see that critical analysis implies to go beyond the explicit information and to go to the implicit aspects of it, but also to the connection of it to other words, including yours. Let's go to the template and have a look at it in order to perhaps clarify this a little more. Here you have. Let's take the analysis stage. What is like evaluate, significant, etc. Yeah. Okay, look, analysis. State what you like or not. Support your point of view and illustrate it using specific examples from the work. It's not just to say, I don't like it, or I really love it. It's not that only. You have to provide evidence to support that point of view. Evaluate the achievement of the established goal. If the purpose and of the goal of that work has been achieved, why not? Analyze the work, stated it if it is it focused, clear, original, informative, well-written, consistent in the use of terms and lines of thought? It means in this work, what is said on the problem is also the same thing that is said when the answers of the research questions. It is the same idea, is the same line of thought throughout the whole work. Interesting, appropriate for the audience, well-researched. That's doing analysis. Marx says the problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. It's not only the attitude, which is very important, but it's also how much you have really understood the problem. So if you know you really know what the problem is, you can look for information that help you either solve it or perhaps improve your knowledge about it. But if you are not clear enough about what the problem is, the rest of the decisions of the research study, which implies formulating research question, choosing methodology, and so on, will be affected by your lack of understanding of the problem. You can only solve a problem that you really understand. Okay? So, the point with critical analysis is to be ready to make judgment of the things by providing evidence to support it. That's the key point there. So you cannot accept any idea that has been presented in a research study or in a book or something like that without reflecting upon it, without analyzing it, without evaluating it. Okay? It's not because, it was said by this scholar and I think that that person is great. Yeah, but even great scholars make mistakes. So why are you going to accept ideas like dogmas? You need to analyze the idea. And usually you get to the same conclusion as the scholar, but sometimes that's not the case. So the more you practice that skill of looking for validity and consistency of the idea presented to you, you will do it. If you see the template, I'm asking you to write down a piece of critical analysis, but of a film or of a book, of a situation that you witness in the street or at your work and that kind of thing. See it in your perception. Ask for clarity as necessary. Yeah. Accept error prima facie. Yeah, anybody can be wrong, right? So that's the thing that you have found it in a book, it doesn't make that assumption false, right? Everybody can make a mistake, and you need to analyze. And besides making the mistake as such, is how the work that you are analyzing can be used for your own work. Sometimes we read theses that there are a lot of references, but when you read it, you see that the link between those references and the work that you are reading are not established. So what we think as a teacher, as a supervisor, or as an editor is, oh, they are being put into this work just to make the number of pages greater. That's all. Just as a filler there. Yes, of course you can print a million errors in a newspaper or in an internet page, or now we have fake news that are very popular according to what media says. Okay? Any question that you want to ask, or any idea that you want me to clarify more? Try to use the template in different situations. Ask about, do it for a picture, a film that you like. Do it for an information in the media. Do it for something that you witness in a restaurant or in the street or something. And then evaluate it, compare and contrast, then take a stand with well-justified reasons. Yeah, evaluate means what a judge usually does. You look at the information, and then you look at how consistent the evidence provided is to support that point of view. You can say, for instance, Mary is a bad woman, and that's all. What is the natural question after that? Why do you say that? And then that person could say, well, look at her blouse. It's too white. And you say, hey, wait a minute. What does whiteness do with being bad? I can get it. Or that person, look at that, she had just kicked a puppy. And then you say, oh, come on, that's bad. Okay? So you have to contrast, you have to compare, you have to look the same situation or the same work, if you are talking about academic paper, from different points of view, in different ways, and try to see how consistent an opinion or a point of view is in relation to the evidence provided. If there is no evidence, that point of view cannot be judged in terms of how consistent or valid it is. So you have to look for evidence to support points of view. Well-defined or arguable? Yeah, well, you can have something well-defined and still be arguable, okay? Because well-defined implies, or questionable. Well-defined implies that the point of view is clearly stated, that there is not option to misunderstood the idea behind it. And questionable could be I mean, it could be approached from the semantic point of view, the linguistic point of view, but also from the social point of view, or the relationship between that and another thing. Yeah, nothing is absolute. That's true. That's why what you can consider not appropriate for your work right now, I mean, this idea or this theory is not appropriate for my current research study, but it could be appropriate for your next research study, or it could have been appropriate for your previous study. So nothing is absolute, and that's why we are here, trying to understand each thing each way. Any other question? Anything that you want me to clarify? What about Laura? Daphne? Anything you want to share or something like that? Anything that you want me to improve in relation to this kind of webinars? Oh, perhaps. It's a matter of how an organization works and how much help is provided, right? That's why we are here right now, trying to help people do what they are expected to do, and that perhaps they have not been provided enough help to do that. That's why we are here. I'm going to stop the recording, but I'll continue here so you can exchange any other ideas that you have.